Well, it's 6:30 and we want to be mindful of everyone's time. So we will get this started tonight. First of all, thanks everyone who's attending tonight. And thank you to everyone who's given us some questions in the past week to give us something to work on. I want to let everyone know that tonight it's going to be me. My name is Steve Farmer. I'm the Chief of Police for the Upper Arlington Police Division. I'm going to have Lieutenant Jason Messer speak tonight. He is in charge of our Operations Bureau. I have Brian McKean, who is one of our trainers and does a lot of our public relations, and Officer EJ Wyndham, who is also one of our trainers and also works in our public relations. We want to take some time because we know there's a lot of concerns going on in the community about safety. We've had a few incidents recently and we're going to talk about those. And we want to make sure that everybody remembers that we're fortunate. We have a great community. We have a very safe city, but we do want to talk about ways that everyone can continue to keep themselves safe as well as their families and friends. So we wanted to take a little time to talk about that tonight. We're getting started here at 6:30. We're hoping to go right about an hour. We went through the questions we received and we put together a presentation to try to answer as many of those questions as we can and address them in some way to try to give some of the answers folks are looking for. And we are going to give opportunities for people to use the chat function to post some questions. We're not sure how much time we're going to have for questions, but if there's something that we know would add value, we'll take the time to try to answer those, to give any clarification for anything that we may or may not have covered quite sufficiently. So we're going to go through that tonight. So without further ado, I want to begin by passing this off to Lieutenant Jason Messer to give a little overview of some recent events in our city. Jason.
Thank you, Chief Farmer. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with our community via this Zoom opportunity. And I'm sorry, as bugs always go, I'm getting a whole lot of feedback and echo. So if I take a brief pause to gather my thoughts, it's because I'm hearing myself about 3 seconds after I say it. So first, I'm going to talk about some of the recent incidents that we've experienced here. On January 14th, early in the evening, a woman was walking from Jones Middle School track when she was approached from the darkness in the area of Waltham and Andover roads by a man she described as Hispanic. He was reported to have a thin mustache, have no discernible accent. He was wearing black pants, a dark hoodie, and a fedora type hat. He demanded that she get on the ground, and she refused to do that. So he then went on, he demanded that she empty her pockets. She gave him her iPhone and some gloves, and he ran from the area. She was unharmed. She ran home and called the police a little while later. She told Upper Arlington police that she believed he had a gun due to his physical behavior, but she did not actually see one. Her phone was later, during the investigation, tracked to the southwest side of Columbus, but the signal ended and the phone was never found. So 5 days later, on January 19th, in the early evening, a young teenage girl was walking to Jones Middle School around 5 p.m. She was in the area of Coventry and Suffolk roads when a man dressed in all black came up to her and yelled, "Hey." She saw him enough to describe him as wearing jogging pants and a top like a quarter zip pullover. She reported that he had a skin tone that appeared Hispanic to her and that he was quite unshaven, but she heard no accent. She did report that she saw a short black pistol, and she ran from him and to a nearby house where the residents called the police on her behalf. A nearby man was jogging and did observe the suspect briefly give chase before running away to the west along Guilford or Suffolk roads. He described the perpetrator as wearing all black and as being built, as in having a muscular frame. So 4 days later, January 23rd, just before 8 p.m., at least one bullet was fired at a home in the 1700 block of Berkshire Road. It is no secret at this point that the resident is a high-ranking public servant, and so speculation is rampant that this was politically motivated. We do not know that to be the case. At this time, we are continuing to investigate all pertinent leads in the case, and our work is ongoing. We cannot release much on this case due to best practices in investigatory confidentiality. To date, we have no apprehensions on any of these 3 cases. So we've been asked, are these incidents related? Speaking of the 2 robberies that occurred so coincidentally in both location and within a week of each other, it is possible that these cases were perpetrated by the same individual, although we cannot say that with any level of certainty. We have no reason to tie the Berkshire Road incident to either of the robberies. So what is the progress of our investigation? I've alluded to it, but thus far, our patrol section officers have provided significantly increased patrol presence in the area of Jones and Barrington schools in the afternoon and early evening, in hopes of deterring additional incidents and providing a measure of comfort and safety confidence to families who live in the area, especially for those whose kids walk to the schools. Our Detective Bureau has spent many, many hours of surveillance in the area, searching for suspicious activity or persons. We have shared information and received information from neighboring jurisdictions on these cases, and we continue to follow criminal information leads as we receive them. We have had no further incidents of this type since the January 19th crime, speaking of the robberies. Most importantly, no one was hurt physically, and both of our victims are recovering well from this traumatic experience. So is there cause for alarm? Another question we've received. If you are alarmed by this, who are we to say that you shouldn't be? But don't be paralyzed. Please know that we as an agency are taking every reasonable step to help you feel secure, investigate these crimes, and bring charges against the perpetrators. However, safety is first and foremost your responsibility. And being an aware person is a skill that is commendable to all. Officer McQueen and Officer Wyndham will be speaking to that in a couple minutes. But the UAPD is sworn to uphold the law and provide you with the best safety services that we can. But we cannot be everywhere at once. On any given night, we may only have 4 police cars and 1 sergeant on duty. So that means you have to look out for yourselves and for those around you. At the end of the day, we've had 2 robberies and 1 shooting. Thankfully, no one was injured. Sometimes crimes do occur in bunches, but take heart that this is a very small number compared to other geographic areas that experience much more in the way of violent crime. I prefer that you not be alarmed. So consider the relative infrequency that such events occur in UA. We have no reason to believe that this is indicative of any kind of significant uptick in crimes of this type. So I'll share about a couple other area crimes. Columbus and Grandview Heights have each had a robbery recently that some on social media have shared as related to our cases. We are relatively confident that the methods, the suspect descriptions, the victim types, and other investigative facts indicate that these are unrelated to the incidents at UA. In these cases, the suspects were described as African American, and the victims were elderly men in vehicles who were approached and accosted, or attempted to be. So at this point, we don't believe that those are related. So we have on our website a tool called the Community Crime Map. And we're going to try to get that up here through some screen sharing. And so if you go to the website through the city city website, navigate to the police website, just down a page, scroll, you'll see the Community Crime Map. Now, this will show incidents all over the city of Columbus as a point of reference compared to Upper Arlington. This information is usually updated each weekday, and this map is generated by LexisNexis. The police division uses analytical tools provided by LexisNexis for our investigations and internal data collection. And this public-facing product is there for anyone's consumption. We encourage you to be informed about the data that we present here. So I would also tell you that on here, you can pick any number of types of crimes that you're interested in seeing. Thefts, robberies, assaults, domestics. I believe car crashes even are in there. You can pick that, weed through and see what's happening in UA and around UA. You can pick the city boundaries. You can pick school districts. You can pick police precincts in Upper Arlington and Columbus. You have a variety of ways of parsing the data and finding out what's going on around you. You can also sign up for crime alerts. If you notice on the top right, there's a button that says sign up for crime alerts. You can get that according to whatever frequency that you like, what crime types you like, and according to any location, home, school, work, church, doesn't matter. So the analytic layers that are on the left also provide another view that highlights truly the great safety that we enjoy here in Upper Arlington and that you enjoy as residents. So use those incidents to become better informed. Oftentimes things quickly spread on social media as something that happened in Upper Arlington. Well, if you're not sure, check the report the next day and allow the data that's on that crime map to inform you as to whether something actually happened here. So with that said, I'm going to pass this off to Officer Brian McKean, one of our training officers, our main training officer, and police public information officer. Officer McKean.
Thank you, Lieutenant Messer. Appreciate you inviting me here so I can speak to some safety concerns. And COVID has really kind of given a blow to us in the training industry, because we're just not able to get out and to meet with the community like we have in years past. So generally you would see us partnering with the public library and partnering with our Parks and Rec department to put on safety series. We see, we do a lot of safety series where we do like personal protection. We'll do talks on frauds for seniors and things like that. So a lot of these programs that we had done in the past, we have been unable to do for 2020 because of COVID. So now that we're moving into 2021 and things haven't gotten better in that realm per se so far, we're going to look at other means. So just like we did our virtual safety town, you're probably going to see some virtual safety series classes, maybe some short videos where we're going to go over some of these topics. But I want to take a few minutes today and just kind of go over some of the basic things that we would talk about in our safety series. And the first one is going to be just general avoidance. So if you know, so crime in general tends to cluster in certain areas. Normally it happens, crime will happen for a period of time in that area, and then either through the enforcement efforts of law enforcement or through other efforts that are outside of our control, that crime may move to different places, but it does tend to cluster. So if there are areas where are known for crime, obviously avoiding those areas would be the best choice. If you can just not be there, that would be awesome. But another piece of that is going to be, think about, like, if you're out jogging, I know a couple of these victims were out jogging. So when you're picking that route and you're picking that route for where you're going to jog, you want to make sure that you're going past highly populated areas. You're going to want to make sure that you go past areas that have a good police presence, and make sure that you're in those areas that are well lit, where there's lots of people around, and so you can be seen. Obviously, we would always encourage you to jog in pairs, not just for the safety aspect, but maybe get that friend that isn't running to go out and run too, because that's going to be good for their health and their well-being. But if you can run in pairs, that's going to be good. So when we can, we want to avoid, if we see someone who is exhibiting suspicious behavior, or you have that feeling that this person might be following you, or this person might be getting ready to commit a crime, we want you to just avoid that area. Try to run out of that area, get to someplace safe. If you can get to the police station or you can get to a fire station, the firemen are always there. They live in the firehouse. And so someone is always at that location. So you can go there and they can get in touch with us. Obviously, you want to call us if you see something like that and make sure that we're en route so we can take a look at it and make sure everything's okay. But that number one thing is just to avoid. And if you can't avoid, then to run away and get out of that area. The next level is, if you're unable to avoid and you've done all of the avoidance measures and you've been aware and you've looked at everything, but now you're confronted with someone and you're talking with someone, this is where we want you to try to de-escalate. In the case of a robbery or a theft offense, if the person is wanting material possessions, we would encourage you just to give those material possessions over to them, and compliance many times is the best course of action. If compliance doesn't seem to be working, or if you fear that compliance isn't going to be enough for this person and that the attack is going to become physical, either through like a sexual assault or a regular assault, at that point, again, we want you to still try to use your words and still try to talk your way out of that situation until you can gain some space and maybe run away and avoid that area. Um, we always want to try to get that de-escalation below the threshold of violence. If you think that there's no way that you can get out of this and that you're going to be the victim of violence, that's where we would encourage the use of maybe something like pepper spray or something that would kind of give you a little bit of an advantage over an attacker who may be bigger, stronger, faster than you. And then once you've employed those measures, then we would encourage you to evade, to run away, to get to that safe haven, that police station, that fire station, to a home that you're familiar with, or a friend's house, or just someplace away from that area. So that's kind of our plan. If I just summarize it, just avoid whenever possible, de-escalate if that fails, counter any sort of violence that you might incur, and then immediately evade. So those are kind of our basic plan that we would go through. As far as one of the questions specifically addressed, well, what do you do if you're approached by someone with a gun? So I want to address that specifically. Obviously, firearms bring with it an inherent level of violence that's exceedingly dangerous. So we want to make sure that we try all those steps. Try the compliance, and running away. Obviously, the more distance that you create, the more space you create, the more difficult it is for that person to employ that firearm to perpetrate the crime. So I just wanted to address that specifically, since that was a question. So that's kind of the general safety set for grown-ups and adults. And part of the questions that we received also reached out to the schools. And since these incidents occurred near a couple of schools, we asked Officer Wyndham, who is also one of our trainers that helps us with training, but he's also an SRO and does spend time in the schools. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to talk about some safety specific things that you can do while you're at the school. Officer Wyndham.
All right. Thank you, Officer McKean. I'm Officer Wyndham. I am a Arlington City School resource officer. I just want to share with everyone some of the topics that we share with not just the school staff, but also the student. One of my job duties is DARE officer. So within those classes, we also talk about safety. We talk about home alone safety. We talk about situational awareness and social media. I think it's important that the kids also get the same lesson that the adults get, just on their level. Because we in Upper Arlington, we have a lot of walking community kids going back and forth. So that's important that the kids know that what their surrounding is consisting of. The home alone safety basically talks about what to do if someone were to come to your house, ringing your doorbell, knocking on your doors when your parents are gone. I give them tools to evade the home, hide in the house if you should have to come face to face with a stranger. Once they've gotten in your home, things that you can do, and kind of prepare yourself. These conversations are important to have because you have to mentally run your mind through different scenarios, just so if you were faced with this situation, your mind already knows from different scenarios that you've come across. Situational awareness, this is important as well, because you and I both know that a lot of the kids this day and age has cell phones that they're always on, or some type of tablet. Being a parent myself, it's important that you get their attention, because if you're talking to them and their face is buried in that phone, they're not hearing any words that you're saying. It's important that when they're out in the public with their group of friends and they're all looking down at their phone, they're not talking to each other, but they might be on some type of social media, social website, not really paying attention to their surroundings. Part of my job is to give them the knowledge and the education on why it's important to be made aware of their surroundings, not just when they're out with their friends, but when they are walking to and from school. This is a great community, but as you guys know, we're you know susceptible to any kind of crime, just like anywhere else. Uh, this also includes the situational awareness when the little kiddos are on recess. I do share with the school aides and school staff the awareness of any persons that are lurking around the school grounds. Um, it's a touchy subject because I don't want to scare the kids, but I want to have them in the know. I want them to be knowledgeable of their surroundings and be prepared for anything that might come their way. Um, Also, when we talk about social media, it's important that they know that a lot of these games that they play also have features where they can chat online. And a lot of these games nowadays are streamed over the internet and they're playing against people that they don't know. I talk why it's important not to give out your personal information, why it's important not to chat with people you don't know. Keep your friend circle close, keep it small, and it's okay to reach out if something doesn't feel comfortable to you. It's okay to reach out to your friends and to your family, and just kind of nip it in a bud, when it's fresh, when it's new, and try to motor past the embarrassment. Because a lot of times, what I'm learning is the kids are embarrassed to come forth because they're already doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and that's okay. Have those conversations with your kids. I talk to them on a parent level. Like I said, I have kids of my own, so I would want somebody to share kind of frank information without scaring them. I don't give them any facts. They do ask, but I don't give them any facts or details of any kind of suspects. I just tell them, in general, things that they should look out for. And it doesn't matter if they're in school or if they're with their family or if they're with their friends at a park or in wherever they may be outdoors. And that's basically it. Like I said, most of the time, um, our school staff has eyes on them at all times. They're sometimes under construction. I know some of our schools. Some kids are walking from like a modular system to a door that's being monitored by a staff member. Um, we have all types of environments, and that's okay. And it brightens my heart to see the kids looking around to say, hey, I saw a construction guy over there, and it's funny because it's under construction, and it's okay that he's there. However, I enjoy that they're looking around while they're walking from class to class, while they're walking on recess, and I will go out on recess, as do the other SROs, and kind of just take a look around, and kids will ask us questions while we're out there, and just kind of make the public know that we're out there, we're watching, and we're teaching to the staff and the student body to also take care of themselves. Like Officer McKean said, and Lieutenant Messer said, you as the public have the best ability to protect yourself. You can you can cover your grounds 24/7, 365 better than we can. So my job is to help educate the kids during that process, and hopefully I've done my job. And if they ever have any questions, I'm always open and available, and we'll continue to grow as a community and help everyone feel safer. You don't really want people to live in fear in their community, but you do want people to be aware. Don't be paranoid, just be prepared. That's all that I have to say for now. I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Farmer.
Thank you, Officer Wyndham and Officer McKean. We're going to hear more from them in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to take a minute to just remind everybody. I know it was referenced earlier, but this has been a very frustrating year with the pandemic, and we had very big plans to spend a lot more time. We've been developing new classes we were really looking forward to it. We actually wrote this into our goals and objectives going into 2020. We wrote them back in 2019, and we made it a goal to build the community relations through education for the community to educate us in many ways, and for us to take an opportunity to provide some education as well. So it's been frustrating, and although we are hitting the wave tops of some of these topics tonight, in such a short time and being a virtual meeting, it's kind of hard to get into a lot of the details that I know these officers are chomping at the bit to share. They're very passionate about this, and we look forward to getting there. So we will continue working on these courses. Many of you may have experienced the virtual safety town last year, and these are the gentlemen who drove that. And we are really hoping to get out there with you to spend some time. So we just want to make sure you do know that we do plan on getting further into the weeds on these topics when we get to spend more time, but we at least wanted to give you something to grasp onto, and obviously give you something to reach out to us later if there's something else we can help you with. So one thing that is extremely important, when Officer McKean was talking to you earlier, you know, he was talking about if you're confronted with someone. Well, one of the things we really like, and we got some of this in these recent events, and that is, you know, some of these people were victims, but they were also very good witnesses. And that is hugely important, whether you're a bystander or whether you're experiencing that. The community, every one of you, you are our eyes and ears. And it's a partnership, and we can't do it without you. But if we do things well, if we can work in harmony with each other and share information in the most optimal way we can be very successful. And I know Officer McKean wants to share some of that with you now. So, Officer McKean.
Thank you, Chief. So when we talk about like what the Chief was talking about as far as the community being kind of our eyes and ears, it brings up the whole concept of see something, say something. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I have two questions that have come in for chat that I want to address. So first, I'm going to talk about see something, say something. So when we look at that campaign, and the federal government did a great job. They poured a lot of money into putting that out there, and we see a lot of calls, and we get a lot of great information from that. But I think one of the things that we can do better as a society and as a community is we need to educate people as to what the something is. So everybody gets it, see something, say something, but what are we looking for? And what do we want people to look for? And what do we want people to call us and tell us about? And so one of the things that we'd like to focus on, and the key word that I want you to remember, is behavior. So if you see something, the something that I want you to see is behavior. I don't want you to see the way someone's dressed or what their ethnicity is or what their race is, except that that could be a piece of their description when we're talking about being a good witness. We want you to look at their behavior. What is it that they're doing? What is it that they're doing that makes them suspicious, or what about their behavior? So, and I wish I had more time, like Chief Farmer said, you know, we love giving these classes, and I would love to spend the whole hour talking about how to look at correlation of movement, change in status, change in cover, and all those things to teach everybody how to be great lookers for suspicious behavior, but I just don't have that time. But I'll just use one example, and that is when you look for things that are out there in the world, and you look at that person, you say, man, that like something's not right. Like the person is maybe loitering in a place where people don't typically loiter, or you have a correlation of movement where you have people who, when I move one way, they're moving and they're following me, and so that would be a problem. And so there's dozens of those things that we can go into, but that's a good example. So when you call us and say, hey, I see this this person and they're being suspicious, our dispatchers are going to, and our officers are going to ask you, okay, what are they doing? What is it that they're doing? So there's a couple things there. One is don't take offense to that, because that's pertinent information that we need, because that judges our response, how we're going to respond, how we're going to approach that individual. And our police officers go through a lot of implicit bias training. So we are very aware of our are biases that are implicit that you might not be consciously aware of. And so we know how to ask ourselves these questions internally, but not everyone in the community maybe has that training. So when we go to these calls, that's something that's key on our mind, is to just kind of understand what's driving the call and what's driving us to be there. So so give me 1 second. I'm looking at my notes here. I don't want to forget anything. So the other piece of that is, and part of this training is, and we've heard from a lot of people about block watches. So block watches can be good. They can be good if people are trained by us or other police agencies, and they're trained to know what to look for, and they're integrated with the community, and they're integrated with the police division. So if your area is interested in a block watch, and I know I've talked to several areas out there, please reach out to me. I'm happy to do those trainings for people. If there are any other trainings that you want, I've done trainings for realtor groups and other business groups. I've come in and I've given talks. I've given talks at the library about various topics. So if there's any security or safety thing that you want for your organization or for your group, please reach out to me, and we will do that. You have to forgive me. I have to put my reading glasses on here. So two questions that we got. The first question was about Citizen app, and the other questions we got about Nextdoor. So there are lots of different social media apps out there, and there are tons of different apps for your phone where you can watch. I know Pulse Point is one, Citizen app is one, Nextdoor is one. The Facebook has been used in this way to join communities together, as well as Twitter. So kind of the place where we're at as an organization is, how many of these do we use and how many of them do we employ? And I know everyone has their favorite one that they want to use. And so unfortunately, we have to make sometimes some tough decisions. So and not saying that anything is off the table, but what we have done right now and what we right now have in place is we're using Twitter. So the police division has a Twitter account, and that is the first place where we put out any sort of alerts. So that's going to be your number one. And I get it. Not everyone has Twitter, and I understand that. And Citizen app is a great app. Nextdoor is a great app. And those are all things that we're constantly talking about. And the more information that we get, and the more we learn, and the more we learn how to interoperability between these applications, the better we can move forward with these. So right now, Twitter is going to be your number one for the quickest information that's kind of like next day type information. So maybe not in the heat of the moment information. That's going to be posted on the city's Facebook page. And then it'll also be on the city's website. So underneath the police division, underneath crime alerts, you'll be able to find it there. And then obviously we'll still use traditional broadcast media and print media through press releases and media releases to communicate other information. So then the other question I got was, what words should someone use for de-escalation? And I would love to commandeer the rest of this talk and just launch into a whole safety program and just teach you guys all about de-escalation, teach you guys all about see something, say something. But unfortunately, I'm just not going to have that kind of time. So I implore you, whoever asked this question, please reach out to me. Send me an email. Let me get you some information. Let me get some books for you to read. Let me send you some videos that you can watch. Let me have a conversation with you on the phone so I can get this information to you. And like I said, if you do have any groups, Cub Scout groups, or we've done a lot with some of the local churches, different groups that they have, parenting groups. We're always happy to come out and talk to those groups. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Farmer, and he's going to talk to you about some things that we've seen on social media.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. And he's absolutely right. He could totally commandeer this meeting and talk to you about these issues and how to be safe for hours. He's done it. We've experienced it, but it's great. It's great to be a chief in a place where people are so passionate on these topics. We're very fortunate, very blessed to have that available to us. The one thing, he was talking about Facebook, and I've seen a couple of the questions pop up here, and people are asking about certain events that happened. Just talking, I can't really go into like the weeds for too long, but we have heard the rumors as well. They make them to us, and we hear about incidents that allegedly happen in our town, and we have no reports on them. And because it's just that somebody hears something, they share it, and it's the old telephone game. And eventually, what is shared by one person becomes fact, and it creates fear. And that's unfortunate. And while we are not always aware of all the different stories that are circulated, I can tell you that the ones that we're talking about with you tonight and we're sharing are the ones that have been reported to us. I can't say that things don't happen, but people have not reported anything of significance other than the ones we shared with you tonight recently. So that's why we talked about the community crime map. That's going to be your source, the clearinghouse that you can separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. Find out what's true and what's rumor. And we will do our best to stay as transparent as we can without compromising any type of investigation. But we are going to try to make sure we share as much as we can. But unfortunately, in today's world, information travels so quickly that you're going to hear things before we do. And we will try our best to make sure that we, squash anything that's not true. But we can always tell you what's reported. Our reports are public record. If you want to know, you can request to find out. So we will provide things as we can, but I couldn't address every rumor tonight. That would take an awful long time. The one thing we do want to say is, and this was alluded to earlier as well, we're only going to share with you what we confirm. We're not going to speculate. And I know a lot of folks have asked about certain things that have happened in our community, and I'm not going to go there tonight, but I will tell you, if we get reports of anything that's got the elements of a crime, we investigate it thoroughly. You have my word. You have the word of the panel that's here tonight. There's nothing more we want to do than, if there are elements of crime, we want to find out what the crime is. We want to find out who the perpetrator is, and we want to get to the bottom of it. That's why we joined police. That's why we're here. We signed up. We like being servants. We like helping people. That's our passion. It's not just our profession. It's our passion. And we will do that. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen. People are mean. People do things that are not nice, but there's not a criminal element. And we have to go with the rule of law. And it's frustrating for us because we would love for everybody to just be kind, be nice, love your brother, your sister. That's where we want to be. But unfortunately, we can't police that. But we have the same goal, having a safe, happy, fun place to be, to work, live, and play. And that's what we're working towards. We're trying to get that for you. And that's why we're partnering with you tonight. We're trying to get there. So alerting the community, how can we communicate with you? I know Officer McKean got the ball started. I'm going to pass this on to Lieutenant Messer to talk a little bit more about the communication, because most issues that we have, whether it's our personal life or our professional life, the breakdown is in communication. We realize that, and it's so hard to do sometimes. We're going to talk about how we do that and how we are going to continue to try to improve that. So, Lieutenant Messer.
Thank you, Chief. So oftentimes we'll get criticized after the fact. Shocking, I know police get criticized, right? But we are asked, well, why didn't we know about this sooner? We hear about that. Either people call in, complain, they send emails, they post things on our social media. Why didn't the police tell us about this when it was happening? Well, quite frankly, when we are in the act of responding to a crime, we have priorities. And when there is an issue that regards life safety and the wellness of the people immediately in the area around that event, we are going to try to get that spread as broadly and as widely as possible, as quickly as possible. But we have things going on such as, well, we got to get there safely. Depending on the nature of the crime, we may be driving with lights and sirens. And that means passing cars, trying to get through intersections safely, that maybe we have a red light, we have to wait for other traffic to stop. We may be coming from Henderson Road and trying to get all the way down to Fifth Avenue. So that can take quite a long time, especially in a rush hour scenario. When we get there, we always have to get an officer to a caller first. We have to verify facts. We have to find out whether what was on the phone call and what was told to our dispatchers is the best information, because information can change in just a blip. And we have to get the best possible information so the first responding officer to the caller can then share that good verified information with other responding officers. Sometimes that means we have to set up a perimeter, and the sergeants will coordinate with the officers who are coming to the scene to maybe do a certain kind of search or a particular pattern. We may be searching properties, maybe out on foot, maybe looking in backyards. We may come across a vehicle or a person that appears that it's possibly tied to the description of the perpetrator of a particular incident or a suspicious person regarding it. And in those cases, we have then 2 officers of, like I said before, maybe our 4 officers that are on duty, who have to then stop that car and talk with that person and quickly vet them to see whether they are indeed involved in any kind of criminal activity, if there's reasonable suspicion to detain them further, to ask further questions, and to hold them for longer than what I'm sure they want to be, until we are reasonably satisfied that they are good to go, or whether they are someone that we need to detain, maybe arrest, depending on the facts that we determine in the moment. So many things are going on, and getting information out to the public is a secondary or tertiary event in our priority in those situations. I'm not saying it's not important. It's absolutely important, but we have to deal with what we are presented with in the moment, sometimes with seconds to decide or fractions of a second to decide. And so getting the information out on Twitter to the area, to the neighborhood, is something we will get to if it's something that is appropriate to share. And then if those immediate notifications are made via Twitter, and I'll just insert here, we are going to further investigate some text alert programs, what the best ones might be for our city to utilize. We have some light touch on certain programs that are connected with Franklin County. We're going to examine whether that's the best fit for us, so we can utilize both Twitter and a solid text alert app to reach the broadest possible audience in the shortest amount of time. So we have found that we believe that that's the most appropriate place for police matters to be shared. So, and then as more information comes out, things calm down, arrests are made, or investigations are begun. Shortly thereafter, we will start to expand that information base to share it on the city website, to share it on the police website with the news, and maybe an article describing what took place, what we're looking for, how the community can help us. Put it on, and we'll get things out into the news media or on the e-newsletter that our city public relations, community relations, community affairs will put out. So those are just some of the things we deal with in the heat of the moment, in the immediate aftermath of an incident, where we are trying to then get the information out to the public. So hopefully that answers some of the questions about why we don't get things to you, the community, sooner. And I will kick it back to Chief Armour.
Thank you, LT. Kind of capping off that. So we've heard what people have given us, and we want to be responsive to that. So he mentioned Twitter, and so did Officer McKean. And I've been to some trainings in the last couple of years, and police departments are encouraged more and more to go to a more rapid type of communication system. While platforms like Facebook and others are nice for the feel-good stories, they are not the most efficient. When something's happening and you're anxious, you're nervous as a consumer in the community, the last thing you want to do is go searching and mining for information. So with Twitter, we realized that you can sign up for alerts and you can get this stuff really, really quick. So we're going to follow the advice of our training and also be responsive to what people are asking. And we're going to make that our police way of getting information out in a quick way And as the lieutenant mentioned, we're going to try to find the best texting messaging platform to get it out for those of you who are not on social media, or if you have friends or family and you know they're not on social media, just rest assured we're looking into the options right now. We're going to work with our community affairs group here at the city. And what we're also going to do is we're going to try to limit where you even have to look. We are in the process of migrating our Facebook presence as a police department into the city's Facebook. Once again, if something's happening and you want to find out what's going on with the police department or the city, it makes much more sense to just have a one-stop shop. So if you want to go to the Facebook platform, go to one site. You don't have to go to the police site or the city site. We're just going to combine these, make it simple. We want to make sure life's complicated enough as it is. And we want to try to streamline things for you as much as you can, at least when it pertains to how you communicate and how you get your information from the city of Upper Arlington. So we are working on that. Our community affairs team is working on that migration right now. And like I said, our main presence is going to be on Twitter. Now, some of the other tools, what other tools do we have for you to use when, we talked about us communicating to you out of, through these platforms, but when you need to communicate with us, what are the ways you can communicate with us? Well, I'm going to send it back to Lieutenant Messer to talk about that now.
So the first thing you can do is, as we've said several times regarding our Twitter handle, is follow at City of UA Police, at City of UA Police on the Twitter. And that will get our currently existing widest net to be cast, and you'll get that information that way. So as we said, we're pushing most all of our time-sensitive public safety matters to that forum. If we have traffic closures, we have maybe a fire emergency that police are involved in, and it's the quickest way to get that word out, we may use that. If we have a public safety matter, we're going to try to push that out as quickly as possible. So we've been asked, oh, sorry, almost forgot. If you don't have Twitter and you want to go ahead and download it as a result of the conversations that we're having here tonight, set up an account, and make sure you set it up so that you get what are called push notifications, so that if something happens and we send out a tweet, then you will receive that. It'll come right to your phone and it will alert you that something is going on. So do that. So we've been asked a few questions like, when do you call 911? What's the appropriate time? Well, 911 is for emergencies, right? So, but emergencies can be in the eye of the beholder. So if you think the cops need to get to you in a hurry, or we'll throw our brothers and sisters, the firefighters, in there in a hurry, but since we're talking about police, if you want a cop there in a hurry, call 911. If someone throws a flyer in your driveway and you're upset about it, don't call 911, but call a non-emergency line. But if it's something where we can take our time, so to speak, and we don't have to get there in the most expeditious fashion, then call 459-2800. That's going to take you to our partners at the Northwest Regional Emergency Communication Center, housed up at Dublin Police Department. They're going to answer your, very friendly person is going to answer your call, and they'll get the information, and then we're going to be sending, and they'll send us along. So if you are in fear for yourself or for someone else, or if you are seeing a crime occur, whether it is against a person or against a property and it's active, call 911. Don't be afraid of calling 911. Don't question yourself. That's going to get the quickest help there. We, the police department, are not going to chastise you if you call 911 and we get there and find out it wasn't a real emergency. We're going to thank you and we're going to go about our way because you've done your job. You've been looking out for your neighbors perhaps, or maybe you were legitimately scared about something that was occurring at your own home or work or wherever. And you call 911 and we're going to be there to help. That's what we do. That's why we all signed up for the job. So there are a couple other 911 options that have grown with technology over the last several years. There is a text to 911 option that you can utilize in Franklin and Delaware counties. So as I said before, the Northwest Regional Emergency Communication Center, they have that functionality. And the text to 911, it's not as quick or as responsive as voice 911 because there can be delays. The text to 911 is outstanding tool for those situations where someone's not in a safe position and they can't call 911, but they can text it silently and get information and get help on the way. My advice to you is the very first text you send is your location. I'll use the city of Upper Arlington address here. 3600 Tremont Road. I need a police officer. I'm in danger. Boom. The dispatchers will know your location and they'll get people rolling. And then they will start communicating, asking for more information and try to get there, find out what's going on, who you are, so on and so forth. So that's text 911, and that's a great tool. Another one is the Smart 911. Smart 911 is an app that you can download to your phone, and you have to then input however much information you want into the Smart 911 program. It can be about your home. Maybe you have where a Knox box, or you have certain codes you're willing to share with police and firefighters in case of a life-threatening emergency. You can talk about maybe disabled persons who live in your house. And you can say, my elderly mother lives in this back right bedroom. There's a window that faces the northeast. And you need to know that in case of emergency, she is an invalid, and she'll need the help of a firefighter or EMS as soon as possible. But that is something you have to sign up for, and then you've got to confirm it via email address. After you confirm it via that valid email address, then you will, wherever you call from, whenever you call, you've got to call from that phone number that you registered. If you call 911 from a house number that wasn't your registered Smart 911 number, it will not work. Sorry, moving on. Something else I want to mention real quickly is the Citizen Camera Partnership. This is a brand new feature that we just put on the city website, the police website. That is something that is voluntary. It allows you to input information about home video cameras that you may have, or Ring video cameras that you want to let the police department know in case of an incident that occurs in your area. Hey, I've got these cameras. I'm willing to have you come take a look at them in case they would be helpful in an investigation. And we have a secure database that information will be kept in. We'll pull it up, compare it to the area of the crime, and maybe we'll come giving you a phone call or send you an email and ask to get a chance to look at that and see if it'll be helpful. Lastly, tip 411. This is a feature of the community crime map. There is a means by which there's just a button. If you pull up a crime and you know something about it, say it is a burglary that occurred in your area, and you realize as you read this crime, oh, I saw a car associated with that. It happened at 1 in the afternoon. Most burglaries happen between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So you were home, you saw it, you saw a car, thought nothing of it the day before, but now the day afterwards you hear about it and you want to give us information. You can use the tip 411 through the community crime map, through that icon of that crime, and submit it anonymously. Saw this car, had these 3 letters in the license plate, had 2 people inside of it, or whatever you saw. You can let us know that way. And again, you will be kept completely anonymous. Lastly, at least lastly for me, I like to use in public speaking Sir Robert Peel. He is the founder of modern policing. He always said, he was famous for saying, the police are the public and the public are the police. This simply means that public safety is a joint effort, and for which we are mutually accountable. It also means that our authority as police officers is derived from you, the citizens. It is our professional career, but we cannot do it without your voluntary support and assistance. We will continue our efforts in reaching out to you, our community, and to build bridges and affirm our mutual commitment to that goal. And so with that, I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to kick it back over to Chief Farmer.
Thank you, Lieutenant. So technology, we've been working on that since I've been here, and obviously we are doing our best to stay on the edge of that. because, and we are going to do, as he said, we're going to try to find the best ways for us to communicate with you, for you to communicate with us. I do know, before I have any final words, we're coming up on that 1 hour mark, but I do realize that I believe I got a little message here that there may be a couple other questions and I believe I'm going to shoot this to Officer McKean for now, and we'll see what he has for you.
Okay, thank you, Chief. We do have just a few minutes, so I want to answer a couple questions quickly. We got several questions asking about classes that we will offer and have offered and would we offer. Those topics centered around the de-escalation that I talked about, the see something, say something, and then we had human trafficking. Those are all classes that we offer. And one of the suggestions would be to do like a webinar, which we would love to do. So we'll start working on that. And as we get more information, we'll put it out on some of those things that you put it out on some of those things that Lieutenant Messer talked about so that you can be aware of those. The other question we got was about the UA scanner or a scanning app where you could hear our radio communication. Those applications are not run by police divisions. Those are individuals that purchase scanners and then rebroadcast that information over the internet. So that's not something historically that police divisions have done. So that's why we don't have it. I know that with bigger municipalities like Chicago and Columbus and places like that, they're readily available on the internet, but no one has done ours. So those are the questions that we have time for. If there are any other questions, we're always welcome to send them to us. We want to answer those questions, and I will send it back to Chief Farmer for closing remarks.
Thank you, Brian. So as he said, we're still open to questions. Our time tonight may be over, but our time with you continues. And we are certainly going to create the venues that it takes to get the information to you. For the questions that we did not get to tonight, my apologies, but we will get to most of those, I'm sure, in some way, shape, or form as we develop the trainings for the community in the days to come. I want to thank everybody for being here. And I know our city manager is in attendance tonight. I know he's very invested in this, so I'm going to give him a chance to, before I sign off, I'll send it to him for just a minute to say a couple words, and then I'll close it out for the evening. Boss.
Thanks, Chief. I want to first of all thank all the folks who attended. At one point, I think we're up to about 203 attendees in the meeting, and that's a great level of interest. It shows how much folks care about our community and want to hear what our police have to say. So couple things that I took away from listening to this and watching the chat. First of all, we are going to look into how can we do a better job of maybe doing more of these, maybe doing some recorded trainings, things like that. We're even 10 months in, we're still learning about how to operate in a much more remote environment. So we're going to look at that. The one other thing that I want to come back to is something that the Chief talked about and Officer McKean talked about, and that is the importance of letting us know. Letting us know if you see something. A lot of times we'll hear about something second or third hand 4 days after the fact. And if you see something that makes you ask questions, even if it's a day or two later, feel free to call us. Our officers are great at having those conversations, understanding, and helping you kind of process things. And if one of your friends or neighbors comes to you with a concern or with something, really encourage them to pick up the phone and call us. And it can be hard and it can be weird. And you can have questions about whether to call us or not. I ask myself whether I should, I just saw this. Should I call the chief or should I call the desk officer and talk to him about it? And I always have to remind myself that, yeah, it's okay to make that phone call because that's what they're there for. So that's one of the things I really want to leave you all with is feel free to pick up the phone and have a conversation with our team. They're great at it. They're going to take it. They're going to listen. We may not get to it right away if we got 5 other emergencies going on. We're going to triage that process, but know that we do follow up on the calls that we get. So Chief, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks for taking the time to lead this, and thanks to the rest of the team.
Well, thank you for your support. And once again, before we sign off, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for being out here. It was a great turnout. And for those of you who have friends who were unable to attend, I believe our community affairs is going to work on trying to get this available. And please share it. We want everybody to be on the same team. Like I said, we have a great team here in the city of Upper Arlington. We couldn't have done this without our community affairs team, without the city manager's office in general. But obviously couldn't do it without you. And be part of our team. We'll be a part of yours. And like I said, before we go, be safe, be kind to everybody, and we'll see you next time. Everybody have a great evening.